All right. How's everyone doing? Sorry for the brief delay. All right. Hold on one second. I'm letting you all in. One second. All right. Let's see, is Bernice here yet? Hey, Spencer. Hey, Roxy. Hi, Talia. Hey, Ashley. Hey, Jesse. Hey, y'all. Okay. All right. It looks like Bernice is here. All right, everyone. I guess we can get started. So welcome again to our Lunch and Learn. Today, you all are in for a treat. Let me spotlight Bernice. How do I do this? I'm sorry, y'all. I don't have Maya with me today. Hold on. I'm trying to see. Bernice, are you here? Oh, hey, Bernice.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Welcome. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you for joining us today. All right, everyone. I see Bernice. I'm trying to spotlight you. I'm new to this. Oh, wait. Spotlight for everyone. I see. All right, cool. All right. We'll get started. So today we have the amazing Bernice Veloz. Is that how I pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's the multicultural media executive at Adweek, and she is going to take you all through an amazing presentation about landing the job. So I hope all of you have your pens and your notebooks ready because you all are in for a treat. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, and Bernice is also a 2019 fellow. So we're so happy that you're here with us. As like they always say, once you're part of the ad club, you're always a part of the ad club. We never let you go.
For sure. We are family. So thank you. Thank you all for having me. I'm in the office and I'm trying to figure out why it's not connected to like my larger room. But this will do. Let me pull up the screen. 1 second. How is everyone doing?
Guys, you guys don't be shy. You can speak.
Yes, please speak. I want this to be collaborative. I want you guys to chime in.
Yes. I know you guys all aren't shy. How's everyone doing? I'll call on you.
All right, can everyone actually see my screen?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. Let me see if I can make this full screen now, because
okay,
for some reason.
This should be a presentation.
Yeah, I just can't. Let me see if this will work.
Okay, that should work.
But then you guys see this.
Right.
Because it's up here on my screen, but all right, no worries, no biggie. We'll do it this way. So yes, as I was saying, just a little bit about myself before we kind of get into, the nitty-gritty of today. I am a multicultural marketing aficionado. I've been in my industry and started my career for a little over 10 years now. I'm fairly young, but I'm not as old as you probably think I am. To that point, I'm a proud Afro-Latina. I'm super passionate about all things film, television, music, and salsa dancing. I'm currently the senior manager of multicultural marketing at Charter Spectrum. If you're not familiar with us, if you're not in our footprint, we are your Comcast Xfinity, your Cox, your telecommunications provider in markets all across the nation. And I just actually started this role in October. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the interview process, particularly in a really competitive market like the one that we've had the last year. Most importantly, I am an advocate of women of color through organizations such as Real Brown Girls, which I am the New York City chapter president of the organization. It's an organization for just women of color across all different professions and career fields for us to build friendships and network with each other, regardless of, what field we're in. And as I just said, I'm a 2019 Ad Club Fellow. So again, thank you all for having me. So today's topic is going to be interviewing 101, if you will, and preparing yourself for interviewing and the process to receive your dream role, right? So to give you a little bit of context before I go into my deck, I'll share with you guys. Like I said, COVID happened. I unfortunately was laid off pretty early on. I want to say it was, the end of March. I had started my job the end of January, and I found myself laid off March 31st, right? So the height of the pandemic, health is critical. I was living by myself. I had my own apartment and everything. And so I was like, okay, I need to find a job rather quickly, right? And so I had to get really, really good at interviewing, how to be efficient, how to present myself in the best way, shape, and form, and make sure that, people understood, the hiring managers understood why I was the best poised, the best person for this particular role. So, it was quite a few months of interviewing and pretty intense, to be interviewing during the height of the pandemic. So I got really good at this. I'm happy to impart some knowledge with you guys, and I hope that you find this helpful. So interviewing to receive an offer, right? I think there are certain levels and processes, yes, that you guys should understand. I know some of you are, fairly young and kind of just getting your career kickstarted. Some of you, have just graduated college or are still in college and are looking, to get hired. So feel free to take whatever, this as a template as to how to kind of get started. And again, I have plenty of experience as someone who is just interviewing in a rather competitive market. So essentially what I've laid out here is the process that I kind of was able to break down when it comes to interviewing, right? So, first thing is just kind of understanding what that process is like, how to build trust during that job interview process from the very, very beginning when you're applying and you get, a screener interview to the very last interview where you ultimately get hired. I'm going to walk you through some steps as to how to just kind of do some research on the company, the culture, the people that are working there. One thing that we tend to forget is that as we're interviewing, you're not just interviewing the company. They're not just interviewing you, it's also you interviewing them, right? So a large part of this interview process for you should also be, okay, well, is this company, yes, on paper, Disney sounds like it's a great company, Amazon sounds like it's a great company, but, as I'm going through this interview process, is this team a fit for me? Is this person someone that I think I can enjoy working with in my day-to-day? Does the culture resonate with me, right? So it's a super important step that I think, and a mindset that people don't necessarily take with them as they go through the interview process. A large part of the process is going to be just practicing, right? Making sure that you practice your answers, practice your questions, be prepared and be ready. And then the last thing I'll walk you through is through the follow-up process, right? What that looks like and how critical it is to make sure that you follow up in a timely manner, as part of, kind of seal the process with a kiss, if you will, right? Because from that point on, it ultimately is up to the hiring managers to say if you're a fit or not. But the follow-up piece as a last piece is really kind of your last impression, on the hiring managers and the team. Any questions on anything I've said thus far? Okay, silence is golden, so I'll take that as a no. So, okay, you have gotten through, the screener process of the interview phase, and you get this, you get a golden ticket, if you will, Wonka's golden ticket, right? You've applied for a couple of months, a couple of different places, finally get this email. Thanks for your interest in, the marketing position at XYZ company. We reviewed your resume, your application, and would like to chat with you. Select 30 minutes from this link. So how do you prepare from that point forward, right? You are nervous, you're excited, all of these emotions, but ultimately, what's next, right? And I think the key to it starts with you, your mindset, right? So if you've gotten to this point where you've passed, they look at your resume, you've passed the screeners that they have, right? A lot of these larger companies have, built-in screeners to filter out people based on, the job description that they post and, keywords and phrases and what your experience is. So you've already passed this first step, right? And so ultimately, at the point that you start talking to anyone, whether, again, it's kind of screener process where, you have like HR kind of just reach out to you and do some rudimentary kind of questions, or you're already at the first round of interviews with the actual hiring managers and the team and the department that you'd be working with, your mindset needs to be that you are a salesperson and that your product is yourself, right? You are the solution to their problem. So keep that in mind, right? As I walk through all of this, and as you yourself start interviewing, you are a salesperson and you're the product. So you always have to position yourself in the best way possible to make sure that you get the offer. And ultimately, I think that starts with just genuinely building trust, right? Building rapport with everyone that you speak to throughout the process. Again, whether it's the very first step or the last interview, making sure that the hiring managers, that everyone that you speak to says, all right, this person is a fit. Not only are they a fit, but we can trust them to do this opportunity, to take on this role, this opportunity, and we believe in them and their potential and where they can go from there. So a little bit about the interview process, again, as I've kind of identified it based on my experience, right? It starts off with scheduling, right? Making sure that you make that right impression when you do start the scheduling process and the screening process, right? The screening process, like I said, is ultimately the first kind of real step in the interview process where they start to kind of filter you. Okay, does this person at a very rudimentary level, does this person have the qualifications to do the job that we need them to do? So, usually this is a phone screening. This isn't, at least in my experience, hasn't even been anything, virtual. It's a phone screening, 20, 30 minutes at most, where they just kind of ask you to walk them through your resume. And again, just some very basic questions and based on your qualifications and just seeing if it's a match. Then you kind of forward from there to the vetting process, right? And that's really where you start to meet the hiring managers, the people from the team, right? And that's where you really have to, your bread and butter, right? Here's where you really have to say, okay, why am I the best candidate for this particular role and position? From there, they start to assess internally, is this, yes, sure, they're positioning themselves as the best person for this role, but are they really that person, right? And so again, kind of that process where you need to demonstrate how you would do the job continue to prove why you're the best candidate for this position. And sign off is the very last step, right? Where you lock in the final sign off. It's that final interview and you lock in that offer and you're golden, right? So your resume, your job, and your employer, all of those together, yourself, obviously, right? Be prepared. A lot of times we don't necessarily prepare in the right ways to go to interview, right? And I think I said it in the beginning, it ultimately comes down to practicing, be knowledgeable about what you're about to get into. People take interviewing, I think they forsake it a little bit, right? It's okay, you are looking for a job, right? Whether you need a job because you don't have one, or you're just looking to change from one job, one opportunity to another. A lot of times people kind of go into interviews blindly and tend to wing it. And you can be the absolute best presenter, but if you don't prepare, that will be very clear to both yourself, because you start to kind of get nervous and you don't feel confident or comfortable going into the interview process. And the person on the other end will clearly be able to see, okay, this person is winging it, right? Sometimes it works. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I would say prepare and practice, right? So the next couple of slides are going to take you to some steps that I've identified from my experience of ways that are good for you to prepare and be in the best possible shape and form for an interview. So it starts with research for me. Again, find the company and the key players of this company, right? Look through the company website. A lot of companies have blogs, right? Employee blogs, and they post stuff in there. Be relevant. Know what's happening in this company, right? Check out the social media sites. I cannot tell you guys how important it is to look at their LinkedIn, their Twitter, their Instagram, their YouTube channel, right? What is going on in this company? What's relevant for them, right? Oftentimes they will ask you, maybe a question or two that is relevant to whatever is going on in the company. Is there an impending merger? What does that mean for the company? What could that mean for you? Are you aware of current events and what's happening in your industry, in your field? Super timely and super important to be relevant, read up on the company and what's going on with them. Glassdoor is also a really great resource. Again, I personally used it when I was interviewing, last year. Just do your research. And the best thing about Glassdoor, if you're not familiar with it, is it's almost like employee reviews of the company, right? I think they're all anonymous, but essentially what, Glassdoor will give you, all right, here is, average salary for this particular role, this particular industry in this city, right? And then when you go into the company profiles, it gives you, okay, company size, again, kind of what average salaries are for that company for particular roles. And it's at the bottom, they also have like a feedback, right? Other people that are interviewing there, you can see, at least when I was interviewing at Charter, right? I looked them up on Glassdoor and I saw, okay, some people, were interviewing, some people were interviewing in New York with, a marketing team, which is a team I'm in. Okay, read that person's review, hopefully that person is objective and that, kind of based on their experience. They'll let you know sometimes in their, okay, here are sample interview questions that they asked me, and this is how the process went. It took me 3 months to interview. It took me 2 months, it took me a week, whatever it is. I highly recommend going to Glassdoor as a valuable resource for your research of the company. And go on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, if you put in the company's name, oftentimes you'll get current and past employees that have worked there. You can see some of them may be in your circle, your networking circle. Some of them, are 2-3 degrees separation in the network. So you can always reach out to someone in your network and say, hey, I see that you're friends with so-and-so, and they used to work at Disney. Do you mind connecting me with this person? I'm applying for an opportunity there. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the interview process. Again, do your research on the company, on the employees, right? Understand the company. I said this a few minutes ago, right? It's not just them interviewing you, it's also you interviewing them. Is this a company that aligns with you and your beliefs? Is this a place that you want to be at? Long term, short term, or is this something that you're like, okay, I just need a job in the meantime, to pay the bills until I find something else? Either way, understanding the company and their values, their mission, is, I think, super important. And I can't stress that enough to everyone. Understanding what the core products are and the services that they're selling. I come from, a history of telecommunications, right? So I'm quite familiar with Charter Spectrum. But even then, during the interview process, right, and the research, I had to do research. I was like, okay, so these are the cable services that they're currently selling. These are the price points that they're selling them at. How can Charter Spectrum be more competitive in the marketplace? When we have a lot of cord cutters, right? So again, just doing research and understanding the company that I'm joining, and how I kind of fit into it, and just making sure that throughout the interview process, you bring up some of these points and some of these bullets, so that they also understand, oh, you've done your research, you've done your work, you came prepared for this interview. Any questions so far? I'm talking a lot, so as I'm walking you through this, please feel free to chime in, ask any questions, ping me. Don't be shy.
So in your experience, when you were searching for jobs, what would you say is the best platform to look? Because some people say LinkedIn, some people use Indeed, some people use Glassdoor, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so for me, in my research process, I found, again, Glassdoor to be really, really good, and LinkedIn. I started my career in post-production. Then I went from post-production to a marketing opportunity at Univision, which is Spanish language publisher programming. From Univision, I went to an agency where I was working on campaigns for like Metro by T-Mobile, which is really kind of where I got my start in telecommunications and learning that end of the industry. And then from there, I went to a travel publisher, which was, like I said, short-lived because of COVID, and ultimately led me to where I am now at Charter Spectrum, right? Each of those opportunities I found through LinkedIn. Not one of them was it like, Craigslist or any one of those others. At least in my experience, LinkedIn has been always key go-to. So I'm sure that there are other sessions and lunch and learns on LinkedIn and just how to maintain your social presence and your personal branding. But I would highly recommend LinkedIn. And then when you do kind of want to start to get more into the nitty gritty, again, once I knew that I had secured an interview with Charter Spectrum, I said, okay, well, let me go on Glassdoor. Let me see what people are saying on Glassdoor, right? And what are some of the gripes and what are some of the pros, right? Pros and cons of the company. And I think Glassdoor is a good place, because obviously when you go on LinkedIn, when you research any company on their website, they're going to position themselves as best as possible, right? I think Glassdoor gives you a peek under the hood, if you will, of, oh, okay, here's what's really going on, what's the culture like, what are employees that are currently there and some that have left, what are people saying? So in my experience, those two I highly recommend.
So real quick, you're saying Glassdoor for research, LinkedIn for job applying, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, I think that varies, depending on ultimately where you want to go, what you want to do. If you want to do nonprofit, maybe, Idealist or something like that, kind of more of that kind of route. But I personally find Glassdoor to be super insightful. And then obviously look at the company's LinkedIn, go through their company website, right? See how they position themselves. Company on their website will usually have their values, their mission, any core statements that you need to know from a very corporate high level overview, and just poke around. Don't be, I think, especially in a really competitive market, don't be shy to reach out to employees, right? A lot of times I think I found myself in situations where, as I was going through the interview process and truly just wanted to connect with people, whether this opportunity worked out or not, I, want to reach out to so-and-so and see if they can help me. Or, I'd reach out to people in the marketing department here that, I did end up getting the role. So now they're my colleagues, and it just kind of makes our bond that much stronger. But I did reach out to some folks, kind of, cold call, if you will, on LinkedIn, and said, hey, I'm interviewing for this opportunity. If you have 15 minutes, I'd love to, kind of pick your brain a little bit, just know a little bit more about the team, the culture, whatever. You don't lose anything in doing that. And what I did find, particularly because of COVID and how people were laid off, is that most of the time people were open to giving you those 15 minutes, right? People were looking to help each other out, and if it meant giving you 15 minutes of my time so I can give you some insight on the company that you might not otherwise have, I'll go for it. And so I had quite a few informal interviews, and that worked out really well for me. So I highly recommend, again, LinkedIn and Glassdoor.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you're, let's say, on LinkedIn and you find someone from a company that you're like interested in like working for, is it like ever appropriate, let's say you get like a 15-minute call at the end, to kind of ask them if their company is hiring? And if that is appropriate, how can you, like, I guess, go about asking them something like that?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you don't want to come off as, pushy, or not even pushy, but you don't want to come off as, you want to be genuine. You want to be genuine, right? And so I think ultimately, if you do reach out to someone, if they're open to helping you out and giving you 15 minutes of their time, right? They obviously know that you're interested in some sort of way, shape, or form, right? They know that you're interested. And so at that point, I wouldn't necessarily say, like, I think it comes down to positioning, right? I wouldn't say like, oh, are you hiring, or is your team hiring, right? I would say, I'm interested in staying in touch. As here's my resume. Send them your resume. Say, here's my resume. I'm looking for an opportunity. If you don't mind, I'd love to stay in touch, maybe pick up in a couple of months, see if, there are any opportunities perhaps at your company. And I think at that point, it doesn't just become about kind of like an interview and trying to get in, but it really does become about you building trust and building a relationship with this person. A lot of times in our industry, it's about relationships. That is something that I know, true and tried, 100%. I probably am where I am today in terms of my opportunity and my role at Charter Spectrum because of relationships, right? To give you some context, kind of came full circle. When I was at Univision, I was a marketing coordinator, specifically for the cable distributor that carried the Univision network, which included Time Warner Cable. They kind of merged, spun off, and now they're Charter Spectrum. And so the same team that I was working with back at Univision is the same team that was now hiring. So throughout the years, even though I was no longer working at Univision, we were friends on Instagram and Facebook, right? So we would, and LinkedIn. And so we would stay in touch with each other. I would still in the industry. So I would see this team at, the upfront events. And so because of that, when it came to the interview process, I leaned on my relationships, right? I knew, okay, someone in this team is hiring for multicultural marketing manager. So I reached out to Miguel, one of the guys that, was from the former team at Time Warner Cable. And again, relationship and being personable and truly being authentic to that relationship. And so sure enough, when time came, okay, I want to interview for this, or I want to apply for this, Miguel said, sure, I'll refer you. And again, I am where I am today because of those relationships. But I think it comes down to positioning. So I don't think I wouldn't offer that up right away, Allison, right? I would, say, hey, can I follow up with you? I am currently looking, let them know that you're interested, but I wouldn't necessarily just say, hey, are you hiring? Or do you know anyone in your office or in your company that's hiring, right? I don't think that comes off as a little maybe crass and kind of rushed. But certainly stay in touch with them, stay on their radar, and kind of go from there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So again, preparation is key, right? So I think as part of this preparation, anticipate some interview questions, right? Again, take a look at your resume, take a look at the job description, and really dissect the job description, right? Based on the job description, what are some of the questions that you think the hiring manager is going to ask for qualifications in a candidate, right? So they're looking for someone with 10 years of experience in a marketing role, right? In member engagement, retention, and life cycle, right? That's one of the key bullets of the job description. Okay, so they're looking for someone with experience, marketing role, experience in member engagement, retention, and life cycle. What does that mean, right? What do you think are some of the questions that they would ask someone 10 years of experience, right? What are some challenging experiences that you've had, right? If you have 10 years of experience, they're looking for someone that is knowledgeable, that is going to be able to handle certain situations. So they're absolutely going to ask you, if you've been doing this job or in this field for 10 years, what are some challenging experiences that you've had, right? And how do you position that, right? How do you answer that? I'll go into that in the next couple of slides. But again, kind of really digest the job description and try to anticipate interview questions and really try to answer them as best you could, as authentically, right, and organically. But also, how could you best position yourself if they're asking for this level of experience, So yeah, that's just an example, right? But I think essentially in this slide, I'm just saying dissect the job interview and think of some sample questions that they would ask you, not just the generic kind of behavioral questions, which are things that will come up, but things that are going to be truly applicable to this particular role and opportunity, and prepare from there. So like I said, practice answering these interview questions, right? So I'm going to teach you guys the CAR method, which is one of the things I actually learned. I truly did study the process of interview during last summer, because from May, so I was laid off and unemployed for about 7 months. And again, I knew that it was a highly competitive market. So I knew I had to really practice and hone in my skill set for interviewing, and just your presence, right? Even more so, we have the difficulty of this, right? I'm very personable. When you meet me in person, right, it's easy to engage. To be able to do it on a screen is a lot more difficult, right? You don't know who your audience is. You don't know what they're doing as you're talking to them. So, it's a lot of things I think you have to kind of take into consideration. And one of the workshops and webinars that I took over the summer on interviewing and interviewing skills taught me this CAR method, which is context, action, and result. Context is the problem, your action is your result, your action is your approach, and your result is the solution. So problem, approach, solution. So any question that they ask you, answer it kind of in this format so that you can be concise, you can be articulate, and you can get to the type of answer that they're looking for. So a lot of times, again, if you are just kind of winging it, they ask you a difficult, challenging question that you might not expect. you start to ramble. Next thing you know, you're talking 3 minutes in, and you're not answering their question. That's not the best experience that you want them to have of you and you of yourself, right? Because then what happens is you just leave the interview and you're kind of flustered and you're like, oh, I should have answered this in the best way possible. So the CAR method is a great way to kind of hone in on how you're going to respond to any question that they ask you, right? So to kind of just walk you through it is, a problem. Whatever question that they ask you is, where are you now? What did you have to do? And the scenario, enter the problem. So in concise, clear, kind of to the point, yes. So, give me a challenging experience that you had. Yes, there was absolutely a challenging experience that I had when I was at Univision. eBay tasked us with finding a Spanish language influencer that was bilingual, that had 50% US composition. And it was like finding a needle in a haystack because, although we had this robust library of incredible influencers, it proved to be that 50% line, and this is a true example. I mean, I'm answering you guys kind of in that car, but this is a true example, right, of something that was asked during my interview here at Charter. This really did happen. We were looking for an influencer that had 50% US composition, but that was bilingual. And more so than bilingual, most of their content had to be in Spanish because that's the target audience that Univision was looking to engage with, right? That's my problem. I've set it up. They have understood what the problem is. Then I go into the action, right? What my approach was. So, to resolve this, we actually reached out to some other networks, right? Although, again, Univision has a robust influencer program. We understood that this might be larger than just Univision. So we reached out to some of the other true influencer networks that we know, right? I leaned in on my expertise and some of my personal friends at We All Grow Network, right? And We All Grow Network is a true influencer kind of agency, and they have their own contracts with some influencers. And so, I was able to, using my relationships, I was able to tap into their network, and we were able to find a solution, right, for eBay, right? They found someone who they loved that hit that 50% composition. Unfortunately, it was a give and take. They had to settle on someone that was more so English language speaking, but still fluent in both languages and does come from a Latinx kind of background. And she performs well for them. And then I go into some of the metrics, right, that she provided for eBay and why this campaign was such a success that they actually agreed to do it a second time. eBay agreed to sign up and do a later campaign with us, later down in that year, right? So again, context, action, result, problem, approach, solution. That is the best way for you to concisely be able to answer challenging questions, right? So keep the CAR method on hand and keep that kind of the acronym handy as we go through the next couple of slides and just truly for yourself as you start to interview. Any questions on the CAR method? And have you guys heard of this CAR method? Are you guys familiar with it as well?
Hi, Bernice. I'm Jensine. I was saying in the chat, is this similar to the STAR method? I've heard of the STAR method.
Right.
But is this just more so for behavioral questions? The CAR method is for behavioral.
Right. I think this can, and let me open the chat now because I didn't realize that you guys are chatting. Yes. So that the STAR method, yes, is for behavioral questions. And I think, but this applies to, again, some of the non-behavioral questions as well, right? I think ultimately when they ask a question like, give us a challenging experience that you went through, sure. But it's such a vague question, and we'll go in through some of these challenging questions or a sample set of them. I'll have you guys do an exercise in a couple of minutes. But ultimately, yeah, they're looking to see, okay, what was her thought process, right? And what actions did she take? Did she, and I think in my case, right, my example was, okay, I wasn't just resourceful, right? I know that we have a task that we need to do. And although Univision, being the global company that it is, right, has tons of resources, sometimes it's better. I leaned in on my personal resources, my personal network and connections to be able to solve this for a client, ultimately making my job, myself look good and my company look good. And we were ultimately able to solve this issue for the client, right? So it's a win-win-win for everyone. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, Bernice is someone that's resourceful, right? She will find a way to make it happen. So yeah, it's absolutely that CAR method. It's a behavioral thing, but I think you can also kind of get granular kind of as you go and answer these questions. But yeah, very similar to the STAR method. I think the CAR method is easier, right? Because you think of a car, but the STAR method works for this as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Cool. So in the next slide, again, I kind of go into another example here, right? Tell us about a time when you took the lead on a challenging project, right? And so, problem: I volunteered to lead a committee of 4 people. Was tasked with investigating poor customer reviews that led to an NPS score of 5, right? 5 out of 10. So your action, right? I analyzed reviews, discovered what customer wait times were the largest contributor to negative reviews. I then led brainstorming solutions with my team to find a solution, leading to your result, the solution. The solution was a change in workflow for all customer service reps. After implementing my suggestion, wait times were dropped 25%, which moved their NPS score from a 5 to an 8 within the first month, right? So again, I think during the result, don't just be vague, be actionable and have some data, right? So I think the fact that this person said 25%, right? It's actionable, it's tangible, it's something that people can understand. And, we moved the score from a 5 to an 8 within the first month, right? So it was a quick solution and it worked and it was effective, leading to 25%. So I think, jot these down, right? Jot for any question, sample question that you think they may have, jot this down in that same order. And as you talk, obviously be yourself, be organic, but kind of have this bullet in front of you where you can hit as you go. And it'll make it easier for you, I think, kind of as you go to answer the questions within this context, this framework of the CAR method. So group activity. I see we have a question.
Yes, so Bernice, I wanted to chime in. I know that there's a group activity, but we're really short on time. Yeah, so it's about 12:44, and I know the next session starts at 12:45.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no worries. I think if you want to share with the team, Aisha,
yes.
the deck, they can kind of take this use this as a takeaway and run with it. And, obviously, if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. To wrap it up, I'll just go through the next couple of slides quickly. So not only is it important for you to kind of prepare for the type of interview questions that you're going to have, but also make sure that you ask good questions. Like I said, they're not just interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. And some of these questions are a good way to impress them as well, right? So ask about your day-to-day responsibilities, what onboarding and training looks like, right? Ask specific questions about the success metrics of this particular role that you're applying for. Very important to ask about the team, the culture, especially now during COVID. You want to make sure, okay, how did this company treat their employees? Were they flexible? Did they still make them come in? What does that look like? And see if that gels and that works for you. Again, COVID, make sure to ask some COVID questions. When Aisha sends this to you guys, these are just some sample questions that I asked them. And I know that COVID is kind of coming to a close, but some of these are still relevant and handy and will still give you insight into company culture. The last and most important thing to keep in mind is the follow-up email. Please, please, please make sure to always send a thank you email following your interview. The thank you email is so important because, again, it's that lasting impression of, they might not remember, oh, Bernice said this during the interview, or, she messed this up during the interview, but she reached out, she sent a really nice thank you email, genuine and authentic within the, that same day. Sometimes I personally like to do handwritten letters. Again, with COVID, there's some technical difficulties there, but I think a handwritten note is so important to please send out. In here, I provided an example of what this thank you email could look like. And again, just kind of take this, run with it as you see fit. Ultimately, guys, in this presentation, just interviewing to land a job offer is a very much necessary and needed skill set that you need to develop and fine tune. Please don't wing your interviews, especially during a competitive market. Be prepared, be yourself, be authentic, because people can see through authenticity when you're being fake during a job interview. And most importantly, practice, practice, practice. Please practice. Do not wing any interviews. I know you guys are running to another session. Aisha has my information. The Ad Club has my information. So if you guys have any questions, want to stay in touch, please feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn, or Aisha, feel free to share with the team my email and my contact information.
I will. Thank you so much, Bernice. This was definitely insightful and so needed. So as I said before, I hope you all took notes, because what she said is very imperative, especially about doing your research and being prepared, because I've been through interviews where I can completely tell that someone did not prepare, and unfortunately they didn't get the position. So please prepare and research, and also the follow-up email is so important, okay? All right, but thank you so much, Bernice. This was amazing. We really appreciate you taking your time to speak with us today.
Yes, no problems. Thank you guys for your time today. I know, Katrina, I cut into your time a little bit. Apologies. Enjoy your time with Katrina. Katrina's wonderful and super insightful. And take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, guys, so we are actually moving on to our next presenter. Here we have is Katrina Craigwell. She is actually a board member at the Ad Club of New York, and she's also the director of brand solutions marketing at Facebook. So she's going to take you, and her team also as well, is going to take you through the ins and outs over at Facebook. So over to you, Katrina.
Thank you so much for having us. It was great to catch the end of that session with Bernice, and excellent tips in there, but we're super excited to be here. So I'm joined by my colleagues, Crystal Wortham and Gabrielle Gibbs, who goes by Gigi. I think are both here.
Oh, are they here? Oh, let me
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, we're here.
I'm gonna spotlight you guys. Hold on one second. Where are you? Sorry, guys. This is my first time doing tech for Zoom. Maya is not here. So please.
No worries. The spotlighting always trips me up, so we're good.
I'm gonna look for you guys. How come I don't see you? 1 second. Gabby, oh, here you go. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
And then one more person.
And then Crystal Wortham.
Oh, here you are, Crystal. I'm blind. Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, we're all spotlighted. All right, great. So we thought that what we could do, so we've all been at Facebook for kind of different lengths of time. Crystal and I have been there for about a year. Crystal, you have a few months on me. And then Gigi has been at Facebook for, what is it, 5, 6? No, it was your seventh
Facebook today, actually 7 years. So
I meant to say that earlier. And throughout the course of all of our careers, we've made moves across companies, across industries. We've had plenty of learning experiences. So I thought we could just start with a little bit. I wanted to ask Gigi and Crystal a couple questions to just get the conversation going, and then I thought we could open it up for Q&A. And it's good to see everyone on video. It seems like we have some more people on audio as well. So we'll just kind of open the floor, if that sounds good. Okay, good. So just really quickly, again, my name is Katrina Craigwell. I have been at Facebook for about a year. I lead brand solutions marketing as part of the B2B marketing team. I previously spent 2 years at JP Morgan Chase within the digital business and within the brand team, and just over 7 years at GE in the brand marketing side and on the software side, and then did some years in media and entertainment before that. So that's 2 seconds on my journey, but I really want to have Gigi and Crystal talk about their journeys. So Gigi, why don't I hand it over to you first?
Sure. Gigi, Gabrielle Gibbs. I lead the measurement solutions marketing team here at Facebook. Today is my 7th Faceversary, so it's kind of exciting. It's like your birthday, so it's very exciting to be able to share that accomplishment today. And yeah, my journey, it's funny, I think actually my journey within measurement and marketing research actually started back in college with a marketing research class and centered around my why. And so kind of taking that on, that's really been, as you look back my path, going to Parade Magazine, where I was able to do a rotational program, kind of really understood the ins and outs of editorial and how kind of a magazine comes to life. And that really kind of fueled that curiosity around media, which then led me to go back to school to get my master's in integrated marketing communications at Northwestern University. And then furthered my curiosity around the data, which led me to Nielsen for 6 years and really understanding media behavior and how people use different platforms, a lot of that within the TV space. So doing that both within a client-facing role, at a corporate marketing role, and in corporate comms. And then what led me to Facebook was ultimately building out a thought leadership brand called Facebook IQ. So I was able to help establish what that brand looked like, leading the advertising effectiveness channel. You can check it out. I'm always going to plug Facebook IQ. And now leading the measurement solutions marketing team, where we get to kind of bring that together, both the research and also the solutions that help advertisers understand their true value of their campaigns.
Great, thanks, Gabby. I will take it from here. And happy Faceversary, Gabby.
Thank you.
So Crystal Wortham here, and like Katrina mentioned, I've been at Facebook a little over a year now. So feeling like a true vet in tech. I had it was interesting. My journey was very old school as to, back in the day, folks would be at a company for 30 years and retire from that company and the whole thing. I never thought that would be me, but I ended up staying at my same company from my internship through 21 years later when I finally left and went to Facebook. So I actually, first I was with Ford Motor Company, was the company that I kind of did an internship with when I was in grad school for my MBA. I attended Florida A&M University for undergrad and grad. And during that time, I actually interned with Ford as a buyer in purchasing. And it was really interesting because there was like this battle between purchasing and marketing, and purchasing made marketing sound so terrible. You're gonna have to do all this traveling, and you're gonna be in like Nebraska and like all these terrible things. So I was like, oh, why would I want to do that? That sounds like a really terrible role. But about a year into after I started full time, I hopped right over to marketing. So spent a year in the purchasing organization, and then went to marketing and sales, where I spent the rest of my career. So very fortunate to work in a very large global company, because in the 21 years, I probably had at least 14 different roles, be it domestically, regionally, or out in other countries. So everything in marketing, from one of the areas that I was in probably the longest is what they call brand content and alliances. So that's everything from events, product placement, movie deals, TV deals, in the early days of influencers and creators. Also spent quite a bit of time in multicultural marketing, media planning, and then of course, brand management, as well as product marketing. One of the things that was a significant shift, I'd always worked globally, but I hadn't lived outside the US. And in my final role, one of my final roles, I lived in Dubai for 3 years, where I was marketing director for Middle East and Africa. So out of Dubai, we serviced about 67 countries out of that office, and that was about a 3-year assignment. Then came back and led global events before getting contacted from Facebook. And it was interesting because, a lot of you guys will face this during your careers as well, because I had been on a great trajectory, had a fabulous relationship with the company, had no intentions on leaving, really didn't entertain calls, but it was just one of those situations where I thought, if I do leave, I'm just going all out. I'm going to change industries. I'm not going to go. Because they were like, oh, well, how about this, CMO role at like a smaller auto? And it was like, I don't know, that's not really worth it. But with an opportunity to just completely shift into a future focused company and industry, it was truly exciting for me. And Facebook, the experience at Facebook has really lived up to that experience. I felt like I spent most of my career trying to pull a 117-year-old company into the future, where now I feel like, it's that position that you want to be in, where you're always learning and feel like you're always trying to keep up with the future, which is what working at Facebook is like. So fantastic experience. And I get the pleasure of working with Gabby and Katrina.
So Crystal, that is like the perfect tee up to the next question I wanted to ask, which comes up a lot in careers today, which is, how do you equip yourself to change industries and enter a space where you might not have as much of that industry knowledge? How did you do that?
Yeah, it was one of those things where I always held roles within marketing that had a very strong intersection with tech. So that was always a passion of mine. And again, I was always the one that would, kind of push us in that direction, where, for example, we were looking at things like, huge vehicle launches. And it was like, oh, why don't we call ABC and find out if we could? It was like, why are we calling ABC? Like, do you not know it's 2020? Like, what are we not doing right? So it was always one of those things where I always kind of kept up and made myself a leader in that space within the role that I was holding. So, I was on Google's client council, worked very closely with Facebook. So always stayed connected to an industry that I was interested in. So if an opportunity did avail itself, I was prepared with, kind of the current trends, especially the perspective of a client that does business with one of these companies. So it's one of those things where, you always have to keep yourself kind of abreast of what's going on in other industries, especially industries that you may be interested in.
That's great. And Gigi, how about you? I know you've had kind of measurement as the common thread, but in the move from Nielsen to Facebook, how did you think about that?
Yeah, I think it is about where is behavior going. And so I'd say that's been like a common thread throughout my career, like being at a magazine when I first started, you wanted to know what the behavior was. And just dating myself, but Parade at that point, it was funny. I think Life magazine was actually coming back into the market, and I happened to be in the business development department. So understanding the different ways magazines were moving, how were we trying to reimagine a medium, which is why I went back to school. And so I think like that media and that behavior piece was always a curiosity. And so to be at Nielsen, I was like, oh, well, this is the mother of data and information about what's happening with a media landscape. And with that then led me to broaden my horizon from print to TV to obviously digital. And Nielsen had a large partnership with Facebook and trying to think about how do you make comparable measurement with kind of TV. So that was kind of my foray and kind of understanding that space. And so when Facebook was starting to think about this thought leadership space in media and behavior, it was a great kind of complement to something I felt confident about, but also wanted to broaden and get deeper within.
So it sounds like you both had kind of the core passion or vision that led you through these opportunities and were valuable in different ways across these opportunities. And Gigi, I'll stick with you for a second, but what's your playbook, like the top 3 things that you do for starting at a new role or at a new company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to my why and curiosity. So I am always going to ask questions. I'd rather make sure that, I think it's very easy to kind of say, oh, well, I want to show kind of what I'm doing and what I'm made of and put your head down. But, your coworkers want to see you shine. And so I think kind of understanding, what is the priority of the company? Like, what is the priority of your team? What is like your manager tasked with? Those are things that have been really helpful. And creating that clarity. I think even my jump from Nielsen to Facebook, I think I had one kind of troubled manager situation in my Nielsen career that like informed how I wanted to start my relationship with my manager when I came to Facebook, which just kind of being more open and asking questions. And so I think some of those things of just making sure that you're arming yourself with the expectations and goals are really helpful.
Crystal, how about you?
Great. For me, I'm just a huge subscriber of the first 90 days theory. So there's a book, audio book, there's Cliff Notes, there's all kind of stuff you can Google the first 90 days, but it's a bit of a roadmap on how to tackle those first 90 days. And just like Gabby said, the beginning is really just being on a bit of a listening tour, because you really need to understand, depending on if you're replacing someone or if it's an all kind of white space new opportunity, you've got to understand from other people's perspectives how the work has been done and kind of what's missing, because that's the way that you quickly capitalize on the quick wins, right? And from there, you can set intentions and set a vision for what you want to accomplish and put it in just bite-sized areas so you can show success as quickly as possible. So for me, it was, it's really charting that course of having a bit of a listening tour, understanding what works well, what doesn't, so you can start to tackle those small things and make impact as soon as possible.
Awesome. And what have been your favorite things about working in tech and the most challenging things about working in tech? Toss that up, whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think the typical things that are like favorite in tech is like all the super cool perks. But since I've been virtual the whole time, I haven't even been there. I haven't been to like the office with the free food and the games and the stuff and the ice cream and the free candy. I haven't been to any of that stuff. So I've only been kind of as a client, not as an employee. So I know that those are all like the super fun things. But I think the other thing, I mentioned, always trying to having the ability to like keep up with trends. Whereas here at Facebook, I quite frankly, I think one of the biggest perks as a person that loves tech is always knowing like what's next and having your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the marketplace, just with consumers in general, because we're a social media company, but also what are those trends that are going to continue to propel these industries forward? I think that is a huge perk. I work with incredible people that are kind and super, super smart, which is an incredible benefit for me. Because again, I was in a very legacy company where it was very hierarchical, where there was a lot of nepotism and things like that. Whereas here, the company's only 17 years old. We're not even technically an adult yet. So we're all still learning and growing, and the culture in tech is fantastic. Now, on the other side of that is we're not an adult yet, right? So that's kind of one of the things that is a bit on the downside as well. If you've been in other industries, because you're like, well, what are we doing? Don't we know how to handle these things? Everybody's got this playbook because, everybody's been doing these things for years. Why are we making these, why are we making some of these mistakes, or why did we make this decision versus making it a tried and true way? So that's one of the things that, just the maturity of the company because we're still in, even though it seems like we've been around forever, we really haven't. And there's a lot of evolution that we continue to do in our maturity as a company. So that's kind of some of the things that I've learned in the last year.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I actually started out, even though I'm originally from New York, moved out to California. So I'd say the ability to be a West Coaster for a couple of years during my tenure, and to see Facebook go from its classic campus to its build broad campus within Menlo Park, and seeing the New York office also grow and thrive. And so seeing the two different environments, and definitely, Crystal, I can't wait for both you and Katrina to experience the office. It is a really fun time. Great people. And I would say like 100%, like I knew from my interview, the people, that I was going to take this job if I was offered it. So for me, that has been the like win in working at the company. Truly, you stay for the people. And also you can make impact from your day one. And I will say I joined Facebook for Facebook IQ, and it was really focused on consumer insights. Advertising insights was a bonus. And I brought it up to my manager as an opportunity area. And now it actually is like one of the 10 polls within Facebook IQ. So I know multiple people at the company who have that story where they found something that they could build on their own, that just, you're allowed to do that. And in a lot of places, you don't have that freedom or opportunity. And I think because we are a young company, we have that trust that you are kind of looking to kind of help to tell Facebook's story as it evolves, and finding new ways for us to innovate and iterate. So I definitely really love that. I think that the pace is fast. And even having been here for 7 years, I still feel like, wow, I'm just trying to keep up with all the different avenues in ways tech is moving. And so I think that is something that you can get lost in, I think, a lot of that as well. So I think kind of making sure you understand, you want to stay up to date, but also kind of how does that help impact your role and lead to your business goals? So I'd say that's the two challenges of like getting access to all this great information, is then also how do you kind of distill it so that you can kind of be really focused and deliver on your goals.
Yeah, awesome. One more question, and then I want to open it up for Q&A. So have a think about kind of what questions you might want to ask Gigi and Crystal, but how do you create belonging for your teams, and also how do you seek out opportunities or belonging for yourselves in new roles at new companies in new environments?
Yeah, I'd say for my team, definitely it starts with onboarding. So we have like an onboarding buddy process so that someone kind of has from the beginning someone to talk to. And so it's not just having to come to me as their manager, they can talk to a peer and someone else who's recently gone through the new process. And I think it is a fun tradition, I think, to pass this along to someone else. And then also I think sharing, one thing I do is not just kind of having those first 60, 90 day like coffee one-on-ones. I talk about it throughout the year so that you can continue to build upon that. And then also as a manager, I think understanding someone's strengths and opportunities where they can make that impact. Because I think it is hard when you come into a company, right? Like you feel like, oh, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to stir up the process. But actually you're meant to be a disruptor. You're meant to come in and help to kind of evolve the thinking. So I try to be really thoughtful about the projects that allow someone to like hero kind of that confidence of work they have in the past, as well as looking at ways they can build partnership and kind of build their internal relationships. And I definitely think coffee meetings all the time, no matter kind of where you are in your trajectory, is important. So that's one of the things I miss, is like the micro kitchen bump in, was just kind of talking to folks and making sure that I was kind of learning about things that were happening. And there's so many people in the New York office who we don't directly work together, but like I had this great relationship with, that they were working on different parts of the company that allowed me to see a bigger picture. So I think, and also making sure you're always growing your network and using opportunities to have human connections. And I love our ERG systems for that as well. So like I'm really big in our Black Hat GBM group, as well as our larger Black Hat group, with those summits to really kind of dig in and kind of make more broader connections of folks who look like me as well, who are kind of going through their career trajectory.
It was, plus one to everything Gigi was saying, especially the buddy part, because that person can really, they create access to information that you may not feel comfortable asking managers yet. but they create such an open and wonderful environment that it allows you to kind of have like a safe space within work to be able to ask somebody questions. Well, and one of the things I found really interesting at Facebook, that it really didn't matter who or what level a person is, they would open themselves up basically as your buddy as well. So it might be like a vice president or something. And at the end of the conversation, they were like, just know you can call me about anything. If you're just like, hey, is this crazy? I don't know. So everybody would open themselves up that way and think that they're like giving you the inside, but they're just like, oh my gosh, everybody's giving me like the inside track to be able to reach out to them directly. I will say, like, starting virtually, it's a challenge, and there's so many new opportunities that are available now and will be becoming available, and you guys may take some of them up, where the work is remote, right? So you may not be meeting people face to face. So the belonging part is really, really, really important. So for me, the getting to know and kind of the fusing and bonding of the team was one of the most important aspects. So during our team meetings, we probably spend 50% of our time on the social and then 50% of the time on business. And that's still to this day, even after over a year, we still have that same ratio, because it's even more important because we don't see each other face to face. We can't, hang out around, eating a quick snack or go to lunch together. So because we can't do those things, it's really important to over-index our time on kind of the getting to know each other. And it's pretty unbelievable how close the team has been able to be virtually. And we sit in all types of places around the world, right? We are in London, we're in Singapore, all these places, but we all feel like we could see each other every day and like run and give each other a big hug the first time we see each other.
Awesome. Okay, so let's open it up. Any questions from the group for Crystal and Gigi?
I have a question. I guess any three of you can answer it. So I'm in marketing as well, and I find it myself being pulled in several different directions at some points, trying to figure out what specific, like the job scope in marketing is so vast. You can do so much with a marketing degree with your MBA. And I just feel pulled in several different directions because I'm like, oh, this interests me, but this also interests me. So I guess, how would you guys suggest to kind of find your niche?
I think when you're just starting out, I don't know if you know. I think if you're in a place where you know that you're not going to be stuck in a particular role and it gives you the opportunity to try different things, I think that's a good place that you could go, because quite frankly, where my career trajectory ended up and the things that I had passion for later on were totally different from when I first started my marketing career. So, and things change, right? We're in marketing. It's like, I was going to say every 6 months, but it might be every 3 months, right? The whole landscape changes. So I would say be open to opportunities that, maybe it's not your particular jam at the moment, but it gives you the opportunity to try different things and explore different things. So like one of my first positions, it was a rotational thing. So I knew after the first role, I was going to go to something else, then I was going to go to something else. So I knew I was going to be able to kind of sample a variety of roles. And that helped me clarify the areas that I wanted to focus in.
Yeah, I would +1 to that. I think, a place that allows that broad scope and development and to allow you to dabble across expertise areas. Similarly, like I did industry marketing, and that led me to thought leadership, but then led me to like long form kind of white paper development and content development, which led me then to Facebook IQ. But I couldn't have predicted that if you had asked me that originally when I first started out. So I think definitely if you have your eye on a couple of areas, kind of, what's that fluidity, or even, places that allow you to have different projects where maybe that's not your core expertise that you're focused on, but you can participate in collaborating so that you still get that infusion of an area that you'd like to kind of maybe dabble in down the road.
And I'll just add one last little bit, which is over the course of my career, I've done the same thing, spent time in digital marketing, brand marketing, product marketing, media. And I've thought of all of those as building blocks, one on the other, so that eventually when I can run an integrated marketing team, or I can serve as CMO that sits kind of across everything, if that's where you're headed to. So I think also kind of as best you can, thinking, where do I want to be 5 years out? And then how do I create kind of the building blocks for that? Gives a little bit of structure to how you then go and sample those roles.
Yeah, and just to Katrina's point, like, and depending on where you want, what you want to do next, right? Like, if you want to set yourself up for ultimately, leading and managing and things like that, what Katrina said is so critical, right? Because at some points in your career, you may be seen as just the brand person, or just the the sexy consumer advertising person. And then they're like, well, hey, we need somebody that's really serious and can work with engineering on product marketing. And they're like, oh, not you, because you do the party planning. So but to be a leader, you have to have all of those experiences. And that was one of the things that I was very intentional about in my career, is not getting kind of typecast as a particular type of marketer. So I could be seen as a leader that could do all things in marketing.
We have a question in the chat that I'll just read out. Crystal, this one's directed to you, from Jackie. She says, I am interested in doing advertising for the Board of Tourism in Africa as a grown-up job. What are some pointers for breaking into global and international advertising?
Yeah, I would say the biggest pointer is raise your hand and make it known. I think I've used the word intention many, many times. Set an intention. I literally that year had on my vision board, Africa, a globe. Like I was very intentional about what I wanted to do. Now, mind you, I was open to opportunities in Shanghai and other places as well. But that and interestingly enough, it wasn't an opportunity at the time. It wasn't a thing. But during that time, the company created an all new kind of region. Before, those things were kind of managed out of Asia Pacific or managed out of Europe. So I was very clear in the types of things that I want. Tell as many people that will hear you that you are interested in international assignments, because interestingly enough, it seems like a lot of people would be interested, but they're not. A lot of people are really afraid to get up and move to a new country because it's scary. It's there's a lot that goes with it, especially, for example, this past year is a great example, right? You want to go somewhere and then some global event happens and you're stuck and you can't get back to your family. And, so there's a variety of risks that go with it as well, but it's absolutely worth it. So let as many people know. You can indicate that on things like resumes or cover letters as well, or when you're having discussions, because a lot of things open up. Because, for example, even when I was talking to Facebook and we talked a lot about the global things, they're like, oh, okay, great. So you would live in London, you would live in wherever. I'm like, absolutely. So a lot of people just don't assume that. So make it known.
Lots of love for the vision boards in the chat. Okay, opening it back up.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Jensine. Thank you for this amazing discussion. I had a question about the interview process for companies in the tech space, because I'm interested in going into the tech space, but I struggle with interviews. Like, I just, get really anxious. I wanted to know, from all of your experiences, what are some common questions that you've noticed that people overlooked and they didn't really prepare for, that you would recommend entry-level professionals to consider? The interview questions.
I feel like I heard at the tail end, like that research and preparing ahead of, the person you're meeting, or whether it's the job description themselves. So for example, like for Facebook IQ, like that's a website, it exists. And so I could tell when I was interviewing for folks, like if they hadn't even looked to see what Facebook IQ had published, even in the last 2 weeks, like that was kind of a signal that, you know, they were interested, but how interested were you? So I think even just that like cursory understanding of like, even if you can't get specific to that department, here's some things that were in the news that are important to your company and decision making, and that connection is really something you can kind of start have confidence about, or even ask questions about, saying, hey, I heard there was a question, or that you launched a campaign. How did that go? What was the thought process within that? And so again, showing that you have an interest to better understand how an organization is run really takes a long way, and I think drives the conversation forward. And I think allows you to kind of lower the anxiety level as well.
Yeah, and I'd say just speak from the heart. As Gabby indicated, you would not believe the number of people that have prepared for every other question besides why. Like, why do you want this? And for me, especially somebody that's younger in their career, passion and being prepared and knowing kind of about the company in general and what is your why. And when you can speak authentically to that, it takes away a lot of the anxiety, because it's not necessarily like the planned question, but it's something that you can speak directly from your heart. And a lot of times that outweighs, you know, all the other work experience and all those things. Like when you're passionate and you're willing to learn, and this is something that you're really focused on, make sure that that answer comes from the heart. I was interviewing somebody this week, and, you know, it was just, she clearly knew everything, but she was reading because I think that her nerves had probably outweighed. And you know, fortunately, like the things that she had to say, you could tell she knew what she was talking about. But, you know, make the notes, do all the things, but do those as just cues, right? And as opposed to like, well, I believe that this company is da 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 da. You know, look down at your notes and say, okay, I was going to talk about these 3 things. I always like to bucket things in 3 things, like I'm like a beauty pageant contestant or something. Like it's world peace, it's, you know, vision and whatever, right? So that way you already kind of know those kind of 3 things that you're pulling from. And it helps, again, just be able to speak from the heart versus trying to be so prepared that you make yourself nervous.
I'm going to add 4 quick tips. Sorry, I can't help myself. And then Inika, over to you. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You'll tell me if I didn't. But I was really nervous interviewing at Facebook. And this is, it was 11, well, maybe it was a year ago I was interviewing. And like really feeling like I was hoping I was going to measure up. And so there's 4 things that I think about, and I'll get to kind of handling the nervousness at the end. The first is I always listen to, if it's a publicly traded company, listen to the latest earnings call, and listen to the latest earnings call of 2 or 3 of their competitors. And, you know, some of it, you may not deeply connect to all the information or even get all of the information, but just have them like, just get the, by osmosis, get the words and the information into my head, and it kind of exposes you to a language. You start to understand the size of the market and the players. So earnings calls. 2 is shamelessly stalk the people you're speaking to. I'm sure you're all doing this. And then I always try and write questions down to ask them, so that when they flip it over to me, I'm ready. I try and think about timing, having, you know, 3 to 6 questions, depending on the length of the interview. The third thing is, depending on your recruiter, who you're working with, don't hesitate to, if you've done your prep, and, you know, like I had one person who I couldn't quite figure out exactly what their role is. And I actually got back in touch with my recruiter to just ask again, like, keep me honest, am I thinking about this right? So don't hesitate to really kind of engage with your recruiter and build that relationship. And then the fourth, which comes back to the nervousness, and I had the gift of spending a little bit of time with my executive coach on this, who I've worked with for years, but we talked about looking at each conversation and each interview as the win, each interview as the adventure and the thing to really enjoy, getting to know the person, sharing what you're passionate about, and getting to know more of the company. It doesn't matter what happens at the end, make the most of each conversation. And that really helped pull me into the moment when I was feeling kind of nervous and worried about just about doing as well as I wanted to. So those are 4 of the things that I think about.
That just made me think of one other build too, just being on the interviewer side, which is that we also like, it's as much about a fit for you as it is for us. So we're also, we want you to be excited about this role. So also know that like, we want to make sure that we're hearing from you. So I think that sometimes that also helps to balance out the power of the conversation when you're putting all the pressure on the one person, that you also have power at this table, because they want to kind of engage with you and understand your special powers as well. So that was something I just wanted to make sure to call out as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, of course. Inika, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Inika. Thank you guys so much for such a lovely presentation. I guess my question is sort of a follow-up to the very first question, in terms of sort of looking within marketing or in advertising, the different sects, how you know. You guys mentioned that kind of one of the best ways to do it is look at the role that you want in 5 years and sort of from there position yourself. I think an aspect that I'm struggling with is sort of looking at how this industry is changing constantly and kind of keeping up with that. And even traditional roles are sort of morphing into kind of having overlaps with others. And so personally, something that I would love to know is sort of how you guys keep up to date with where sort of like different trends or where advertising in the marketing space is heading. I just feel like that would be really helpful.
I'd say groups like this, really industry bodies are really important for that. So there's tons of like, it sounds corny, but like, email newsletters you can get on from, whether it's, Adweek and this, like just to keep the pulse, follow those different industry bodies on Twitter, see what they're doing on their social handles, the types of companies that you're interested in, follow them to see what types of marketing that they've got coming out. As indicated earlier, kind of integrated marketing is really the way things are, right? There's no such thing as like a traditional TV buyer anymore, right? Like the media person has to manage all aspects of media. So it's not just like, oh, I'm a digital person. Oh, I'm a traditional person. I'm an events person. All of those things are all integrated now. And I feel like the best way to keep up, especially right now, I think right now is like a great opportunity because there are conferences upon conferences that are available to everybody. A lot of them are available at no cost and they're virtual. So things that you were kind of, you wouldn't have been able to be like in the room where it happens before, because it's like, oh, there's this San Francisco conference on, digital marketing for senior executives. A lot of those things have opened up because of what's happened in the last year and are available virtually. And especially if you're a student or just starting out, a lot of people are providing those free opportunities to stay up to date. And it also gives you an opportunity to kind of like virtually network as well, which is another great way of staying up to date.
Yeah, I would +1 to all of that. And I think your network, I think about my college friends, my grad school friends have all like evolved different ways into different ways of business and marketing. I actually have a friend who was in fashion PR and now is in sustainable like travel tourism, which is marketing as well. There's definitely different iterations. So I think it's also nice to, and you don't have to stay focused maybe in one industry or lane. Like what are the things your friends are doing and how are they leveraging that work? And then also stayed in touch with bosses from or kind of colleagues from past companies as well. So how are they evolving within these new times? So I think kind of keeping that connection and maintaining your network is really helpful and kind of helping to resurface up, as well as definitely the conferences. I would agree. It's 100% more accessible now that everything is on Zoom.
And maybe I just had a couple of newsletters that came to mind as you were asking that question and talking about this that I know that I go to every morning. So why don't I send over that list as a follow-up, and Gigi and Crystal, I'll check with you to see if you have any ads. Would that be helpful?
Thank you so much.
Okay, good. So I know we're at time. A big thank you for having us and chatting today. This is awesome. I always love seeing you guys.
Yes, this was amazing. Thank you so much, Katrina, Crystal, Gabrielle. We really appreciate you taking time to speak with us. You all, I really do encourage you to connect with Katrina, Crystal, and Gabrielle on LinkedIn and definitely keep in touch. This was great. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoys their afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.